So I'm here with attorney Andrea Burkhart and Lisa of the Manson Cases. And the first question out of the gate, Andrea, what the hell has been going on between the DA, the LADA, and the LA Sheriff's Department? Can you get us up to speed on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the $1,000,000 question, right? So for background purposes, Marilyn Manson has been under investigation by the LA County Sheriff's Department for approximately the last 2 years. We already know there was a search warrant executed on his home where his computers, his storage devices were seized. And we also know that Evan Rachel Wood has several times called on her followers to basically contact the LA County prosecuting attorney, the LA County Sheriff's Department, and sort of put pressure on them to move the investigation forward. So then we got what is, from my perspective, a little bit of an unexpected response from Eric Gascon, the LA County prosecuting attorney, last week in response to a question from, was it Marilyn Manson Uncanceled? Forget exactly who it was who asked it, but basically inquired about the status of the investigation. And so he said that at this point in time, it was still with the LA County Sheriff's Department. They were waiting for the report to be forwarded. In the meantime, of course, if anybody has information, please contact them. And so then within the last few days, we saw that the LA County Sheriff's Department story was published that they have now forwarded their investigative file to the LA County District Attorney's Office. And, that's unaccompanied by any sort of arrest, any sort of indication of a formal charge being filed, which in my opinion is quite unusual. And I have a video on my channel where I talk about that. So then after that, we see this kind of backpedal from the LA County District Attorney's Office, the statement where they're basically saying this isn't the full report, this is just part of the report. And after we get the whole thing, then we'll sit down and look at it and evaluate what we're going to do. Okay, which is, from my perspective, it's just getting more and more suspicious because we know that there have been obviously very serious accusations made against Marilyn Manson, not just these claims of sexual assault and stuff, but claims of sex trafficking, child pornography, pedophilia, things that are pretty high on the list of priorities for prosecuting and intervening there. So, I don't know why you would sit on a partial report and wait to look at it until you get another part of a report. This all to me is just not consistent with there being anything in this investigation that is likely to lead to some type of criminal charge.
Because if theoretically Marilyn Manson were doing these things that he's been accused of, then they're basically dragging their feet and exposing potential new victims, right?
Well, sure. And the thing that stands out to me in all of this, and has for almost a year now, is the lack of anything that has come from that search warrant, because so much of your life is on your computers and your hard drives and your storage. I mean, if you can't be nailed with what's on your computer, then, you're probably pretty clean.
Right.
So, I mean, it just really seems to me that if there was anything for them to move on, it very likely would have already happened. For that reason that you suggested, yes, these are high priority cases to get people off the streets.
So what do you think is going on? What is up with this kind of almost kind of like crossfire or friendly fire in a way? Because it seems like Gascon, the prosecutor, the DA, it's kind of making the LASD look bad, and even kind of going along with the idea that Evan herself was promoting that the law enforcement is just going so slow. And then it seems like the LASD and sort of in making it known that they'd finished and they'd kicked the files over. It seems like they were kind of firing a shot at the prosecutor. So what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like political buck passing. My conclusion from this is that I don't think charges are likely to be filed, and I think that is an outcome that Mr. Gascon is not happy with. I think he wants to pursue the case, and so he needs some type of explanation for why he isn't able to do that. And the obvious scapegoat for him is the law enforcement, is the investigation. He can only charge if they, present him with a viable case. And so I think the LA County Sheriff's Department is, kind of rightfully throwing the hot potato back into his lap, saying, we've done what it's our obligation to do. The decision whether to, file some type of charge out of it, that's your decision. I did see something, I forget exactly where I saw it, but within the last couple of days, that indicates there is pretty much likely no relationship at all between Eric Gascon and Sheriff Villanueva, the elected sheriff in LA County. That apparently this is not a good working relationship. So there are other things there that are. We like to think that law enforcement is just objectively and dispassionately carrying out the laws, equal protection for everybody, right? But the reality is that politics have a huge influence on how these decisions get made, because these people are accountable to the voters. And so the situation right now is that Eric Gascon recently survived a recall attempt. His political opponents tried to get him recalled. They weren't able to get it on the ballot for this year. So he appears to be safe until he's up for re-election in, I think, 2023. But Sheriff Villanueva is on the ballot this year. So this is, just part of the background information that could play into why things are unfolding the way they are. Why would Gascon want it to look like his political adversary is the one that's dropping the ball and not him? Something to bear in mind.
Yeah, it's like they're going so slow. We're just waiting to get the rest of the file from the sheriff. Well, I will say this, I did speak to one of the lead detectives in the Manson case for quite a while on one occasion, and comparing my experience with him versus what I've seen of Mr. Gascon, I was not impressed with Mr. Gascon, and I was really impressed with this detective. And so I think, what I imagine happened is that, and again, my sense from talking to the detective, my underlying sense was that they know this is a hoax, and by Evan Rachel Wood and the others. And so what I tend to think happened is that they did send him a complete file saying this is not a legitimate case, and he's just not wanting to accept that. He's wanting to drag his feet, which is basically what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I think he's kind of put himself in a double bind here, where he's politically vulnerable because Evan Rachel Wood is sort of publicly challenging him to address it.
Yes.
His interest is in not saying anything at all, right? just let it die. Right. He's not under any legal obligation to. It can't be, he can't be compelled to publicly disclose the status of an investigation. So he doesn't have to speak up, but he chose to do that now. I don't know if that's specifically in response to Evan Rachel Wood trying to, call him out publicly, but he did. And so now that he's kind of stuck with, you're gonna need to keep us updated. And so it does look to me like kind of kicking the can down the road to buy time to figure out how are we going to address all of this.
Well, I've never heard of politicians kicking cans down the road. So, so Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. It's so great to get both you and Andrea on the show. And Lisa of the Manson Cases, I know that you're a bit newer to the scene than Andrea and I are, but you've really just provided so much information to your subscribers and followers so far. And so I'm just curious, before we move on to talking about some of the recent drama and emotions and Ashley Smith line and stuff, anything you want to add to what Andrea said about the recent controversy with the sheriff and Gascon?
Well, it was funny what she was saying, Andrea, that when I first saw that, I wondered if there was some political back and forth going on. I didn't realize there was an election coming up, but that's what it looks like. I have some military experience where there's investigations, and it's not normal to give a partial report. It doesn't make sense. Usually you would get, and I don't understand, legalese, but in the military, you get reports, memorandums when it's done. You don't get a partial update. It just doesn't seem normal to me either. So it was interesting to hear that it's likely a political back and forth that's going on.
So Lisa, what is the latest with the Ashley Morgan Smithline drama? So, we had one of the main accusers, Ashley Morgan Smithline, claimed that she had fired her attorney, and then she's been in contact with Manson's attorney. What's been going on since then?
Well, since then, it looks like there's some federal filings indicating some of this drama might be sealed, but we don't know for sure because we can't see what is sealed. And it looks like there is supposed to be a court date next week, but I'm not quite sure with all this drama with now Ashley Walters. So in the last, I would say the 20th and 21st, there were new filings in Esme Bianco's case that she hasn't sit down for a deposition, much like Ashley Morgan Smithline hasn't. And apparently it was due to her attorney not being available to prepare for this sit down, even though she has 5 attorneys between 2 different law firms. And
Ashley Walters has 5 attorneys?
Yes, according to the filings.
So I'm curious, Andrea, do you think, what do you make of the Walters thing? Is it normal to keep delaying depositions, or kind of, it sounds like she's dodging it almost?
It does sound like a dodge. So something I will just clarify is that all of this is happening in the context of Esme Bianco's case against Marilyn Manson. And so through that case, he is trying to depose Ashley Smithline Morgan and Ashley Walters as witnesses. They also happen to be, accusers themselves, but this is not directly arising from their own cases against him. So this is all happening in Esme Bianco's case. And so what we saw was with Ashley Smithline Morgan, this sort of bizarre tailspin where she did not attend her deposition. Her attorney claimed that she had an emergency psychiatric situation that required treatment, that he would still produce the documents he was required to produce and would provide a doctor's note to substantiate that. Rescheduled the deposition for like 2 weeks later. And then in the meantime, he did not produce, he did not get the doctor's note. Ashley Smithline then, has gone public in various ways, basically saying that she fired her attorney back in April, and produced some receipts to support that. The attorney moved to withdraw and asked to extend her deposition so that she can get a new attorney. Howard King, Marilyn Manson's lawyer, is basically opposing all of this, and so at this point, they are basically waiting on a decision for whether Ashley Smithline's attorney is going to be allowed to withdraw or not. A lot of that is also probably going to happen behind the scenes. He has filed his reply on the motion to withdraw as counsel, where he basically says, he claims that there are communications between him and Ashley Smithline that substantiate that he still represents her, that he did all the scheduling and everything like that, pursuant to her explicit directions, but he can't publicize those communications because they're privileged. So he's asking the judge to look at them in camera, meaning in chambers behind the scenes.